At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
To noon in the Friday football feast in front of Super Bowl 59, which is on your audio home for the Vikings and the National Football League, FM 100.3, KFAN, and the free iHeart Radio app. Go ahead and download that now. And before we get into flip some of the Super Bowl script, because this is a piece where, just in case the reliable can't be found, on Sunday, when the boom takes place at like 5:30, it's like heads are scratched because, say, scenario A, there's just no way this scenario can go bad, and it does. We'll get into that momentarily, but fantastic work, by the way, with the Super Bowl 59 National Football League and Uncle Bernie prep packet that you delivered, Paul. We appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And on the last page under NFL stuff, I didn't hear this or read this. This is interesting. Packers running back Josh Jacobs says the team needs a, quote, real wide receiver.
I always love that one.
End quote. And, quote, we need a proven #1, end quote.
I always love that one.
I mean, did he say it? We need a real wide receiver just like that?
Yes, he did. These are put that in quotes. That was what he said. And he's not wrong.
Right.
I mean, they got
different ways to say it.
They got these guys, right? You got Romeo Dobbs, you got Christian Watson, who's always hurt. They need
Jaden Reed's the bomb. Now, he got a little slow at the end of the year.
He's kind of a utility guy.
He's a trick.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a trick guy. Mm-hmm. And he's good at his trick.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
They need a T. Higgins. They need a good player, a good receiver that's on the field 80%, 85% of the snaps and can be your go-to #1 guy.
Right.
Who's not going to get hurt, who's going to come down with balls, who's going to get separation. They don't have a complete receiver on that team. They've got speed guy downfield in Watson. They've got a trick guy behind the line of scrimmage, bubble screens and runs, and Jaden Reed.
Dobbs, who got suspended for a game because he tried to quit the team.
He did try to quit the team.
Dontavian Wicks is a little underrated.
A little bit.
I mean, there's got to be something to him.
But there's a reason he can't get on the field more than 14
wrong.
plays.
He's in the wrong spot. There's something like that.
Yep.
But when he's out there, man, he makes plays.
He does make, sometimes.
He makes
once a month. That's right. Once a month he makes a play. So Josh Jacobs is not wrong. It'll be interesting to talk to Davey over the offseason and find out if he agrees that this is one of the... Are they going to put more capital into wide receiver?
Well, here's what's funny about this too, Charch, because everything you've said is accurate. This is 12 months removed from... I don't know if we have a #1. We have 4 number ones. The way they talked about it a year ago was that you wouldn't believe, of course, this is the development of Romeo Dobbs. He's now, Dontavian Wicks, steal of the draft. Jaden Reed, unbelievable. He gets those little wheel routes and he can catch a little bit and he's explosive. And we have seen moments like that, but it's unbelievable how quickly this thing changed. From we don't have a number, we might have 4 #1s, and then take a look at these tight ends to the running back just openly speaking the truth about how destitute in some ways that position group is yet again for a team that has woefully underserved that position group at a high level, it feels like, for a quarter century.
Everything Josh Jacobs says is right.
Correct.
There are just different ways to say it. When you're talking about your dogs and
I love
the
it.
locker room, like Justin Jefferson after the Madison experience, I just don't see him saying, well, the first thing we need to do is get a real running back.
I always love that one.
See, put it in okay, now hold on. We need to land. This may be a covenant cleanup. I don't know what it is. My phone is exploding off that last segment. I got a few tweets on it. So let's just covenant cleanup here, provided by nobody, if it even is required. Because we read that, the Kevin O'Connell
Clarifying remarks.
Clarifying remarks slash a quote with the local media. Off something that supposedly was said about Sam Darnold, but it started with my phone and people texting me, but now I went to the tweet machine and so Alec Lewis, where I'm pulling this from, an hour ago. Okay, so the original, the clarifying covenant quote was from 11 hours ago. This from an hour ago. Alec writes, was not in New Orleans, but here's video of Kevin O'Connell's presser after winning the award. Feels like the reporter misconstrued Kevin O'Connell's comments on Sam Darnold and then Justin Jefferson.
Oh, my God.
So he was this connect the dots macabre stupid thing. I guess he's talking about Justin Jefferson. Whomever started this, I don't understand. I don't care either.
Justin Jefferson,
but I don't care either. So that's the end of the story. The plane has landed. Congratulations, Kevin O'Connell, on becoming 2024 National Football League Coach of the Year.
Would you like his clarifying comments, or
is it different than what I read?
What you were saying feels that it was misconstrued. Did you go through and I apologize, that was we got some headphone related bits here. That I don't think it was 100% accurate.
Yeah, I read the whole thing.
Okay, perfect.
So that's, I don't think it's a big deal, but there are others who do think it's a big deal. But so I guess.
Well, we're already in off-season mode where we're picking apart every little word, every little tidbit that would suggest whether or not Sam Darnold's going to come back. What this team might do in free agency. We're at that stage.
Well, and Tom Pelissero, we love Tom, but Tom has really been. I don't want to say he's the singular voice in the room, but he's continually used that term, logical, that it is still the most logical outcome, maybe for both sides or one side in particular, the idea of Sam returning to the team. So I think, maybe clarifying those comments was important, at least in the context of that's the hottest talker among Rubes right now.
Ain't no doubt.
Are you going to pay Sam? Are we going to move on? Is it J.J. McCarthy's season, et cetera?
Ain't no doubt, but I had no idea that it's en vogue, or it absolutely happened according to things I'm reading. He was misquoted.
It sounds like he was misquoted.
So I mean, I'm not going to covenant catch up or clean up because of somebody else's stupidity. It's seriously, that's what happened. It's Darnold with the Vikings, Darnold without the Vikings. Well, it'll play itself out.
It will, yeah.
And off what Nordo said, I'm glad you put it like that because Tom has doubled, and Tom Pelissero, .com Tom, NFL Network, wonderful reporter and super reliable. But I mean, when we start playing here's the reality card, or one person telling everybody else what's logical, well, I'm really going to dive into the context of that and try to unpack it just because it has a feel to it like, you know what? I mean, I've been waiting 59 years for somebody to teach me what's logical.
I always love that one.
Which does have some truth to it, but it just has an overarching, if you don't believe this, you're stupid. So when he says it's logical to deduce Sam Darnold will be brought back as quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. I would need to discuss it with him or hear more, because what part is absolutely intangible fashion logical, and the low hanging fruit here with logical Sam Vikings, when you have a season like he had and you start out and it's okay, and then it gets good, and then it gets wonky in the middle, and then you finish full of fire. And then in the Lions game, I mean, you basically almost single-handedly lose it yourself as the quarterback. That all logically is part of this narrative. It's part of whatever diatribe somebody's going to offer when offering an opinion on Sam Darnold. Right. We obviously have a right to say, like Nordo said right after the season, that Lions game, I'm taking that and multiplying it by whatever number compared to this other stuff. I agree with him. The magnification of that game is not the same as the magnification of going to Nashville and beating the Titans. It's just not.
Right.
But I do believe it is logical. If somebody says, you found him, you raised him, it was good, and that was just the first go around.
Yeah.
And
it has the chance to be better.
If you look at percentages in situations like this over the years, it continues to get better.
Right.
I do believe that. I do find that to be logical.
And I think
however, the logic part of it doesn't stop there, because you just don't find somebody on the turnip truck, bring them in, it works, then bring them back without paying them. So now the next part of the, quote, logic, end quote, is, all right, I can hear that, and I'm even willing to wait for the kid. And Daniel Jones, who knows? But yes, I agree with you on all that. So what's it going to cost me? 15, 17 million a year? Well, that's going to be about 35. Okay, well, cool. Well, that puts me right back where I was, looking between couch cushions for nickels and dimes to not get Grenard, Van Ginkel, or Cashman, but to get bargain basement free agents.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the logic, too.
Indeed.
So that I don't find that to be logical.
Right. Well,
that part of it.
I think in a vacuum, you can look at the logic of he's never had more success here. So as long as the money ultimately makes sense, he would want to come back here more so than he would be interested in going elsewhere.
Right.
From a Vikings perspective.
I would too if I were him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. JJ McCarthy, he's now healthy. OTAs, it sounds like right around the corner. He's going to be a full go through the offseason. You could find logic in the idea that he's still unproven. Mm-hmm. And what we had was a 14-win season with this guy, so there would be motivation on the team's part to not roll in and you know they obviously they have more intel, they have more belief, they have more understanding of truly what McCarthy can do when if he is to start in 2025. But the logic would be, well, I got this guy who proved himself in this system a year ago. I would love to have that security backup, at least make it a competition in the fall. So I see where Tom's coming from with
absolutely.
That. But
I ain't paying $40 million.
But if you expand it to the global conversation of the team and the implications of that dollar amount, I am also 100% out on paying him $40 million a year.
Right.
And I feel like I can be justified as being quite logical in that position too. So I as I look at it with Sam's gone from obscurity to like sit in front row at the NFL awards show. I mean, it's been one heck of a year for Sam. I question just how deep this market is going to be for him next month. I do question that quite a bit, actually, to the degree of, I think in the end, if the Vikings did bring him back,
interesting.
I don't necessarily believe that it would automatically be $35 or $40 million by the time everything shakes out. So we'll see. Definitely have the opportunity to be wrong in that regard, but I look at it, I see where Tom's coming from. It's still up in the air. I would lean still towards it's JJ, it's Daniel Jones, and the story will write itself from there.
What about Jay?
If it turns out that Sam Darnold is going to net $30-40 million, then I think the three of us are all saying the same thing. He's not going to be here. But what's the price where you do want him here?
Exactly.
Give me the contract.
$15 million a year.
15 for over how long?
I don't know. I'd think about it. But
3 years, $15 million?
Yeah. I mean, I can put my situation in a box in 9 seconds, and I don't see it changing. If Sam Darnold were quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings next year, I'm cool. I'm good. Yeah. If they come together and he's the quarterback, I'm cool. If it's an exorbitant amount of money guaranteed and yearly, I don't prefer that. And yes, probably like others, what happened in the Lions game is unforgettable for me. And it simply is it just can't go from 10-0, period, let alone in that game.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and the next game.
The next game was dicey because not all the sacks were on him.
Yeah, but there were also 9 sacks in the game.
I understand that, but I mean, we can look at the offensive line performance, running backs who missed things, tight ends who missed things, quarterbacks who held it too long, and we can slice and dice our way through that, and we can get all the answers. We could do it between segments if you want. Stop, please. In the Lions game, we don't have to look at a ton of film.
Yeah.
I can show you in 9 seconds 5 touchdowns that were missed in the biggest game of a lot of people's lives. So now, if you get in a situation like that again, if I own the team and I'm like, cool, I'm signing off on this. If we get into a spot like that again and that happens again, whomever convinced me that this was the right thing, you might be fired.
Right.
Okay? Not hand slap. Yeah, you got guidelines. Everybody else has rules because you've done a good job. You might be fired. So that's in totality. That's just like the three facets how I look at it. What were you saying?
Well, I just picture the way you're laying it out with the Rams game. You got Sam in a room, and they're all sitting at a table, and they got 9 scraps of paper on the table, and like Dalton Reisner's like, yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, Blake Brandel, yeah, I'll take that one. I mean, as brutal as that game was with all of those sacks, he's holding on to the ball too long. It was a complete malfunction and a dismantling of that offensive line. The number that sits in my head, I'd give him what about like 3-60 and like 45 of it's guaranteed, something like that. Where that third year, you're still protecting yourself with the development of JJ McCarthy, like something like that. That's palatable for me. But the numbers that have been thrown out, again, as good as that season was, that just I got to walk away from that if it gets that high.
You?
This will be the defining decision of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's career, is this one right here.
You can't say that, but anyway, go ahead.
I can. This is the most
he's
decision.
General manager for 10 more years. What about the McCarthy pick?
If he gets this right,
if this thing goes the wrong way,
right, he gets to be here for 10 more years. If he gets this wrong, at a level that we're talking about, where you pay him starting quarterback money and you eschew other team needs, cornerback, defensive tackle, guard, whatever you want, and put yourself back in a quarterback salary cap bind that many people in this town were delirious to not be in once Kirk was gone. If you get that wrong, that might be it. This might be your last major decision. So I do think this is the biggest inflection point of his career, will be this decision right here for Kwesi. Yep. And I don't know for sure that our head coach and our general manager are in lockstep on every part of that decision. We don't know. I don't know, but I think it's reasonable to talk to wonder if they are in alignment on what they want out of this. Yeah. Yep. So I do not believe Sam will be here. I believe Sam. I think you took Jay, unless they saw something in JJ McCarthy they really did not like.
Well, and let's not eliminate Daniel Jones from this. And it's unfair to eliminate Daniel Jones from this, because just remember the opinions off the past performances of Sam Darnold this time last year.
Right.
And nobody saw what we saw coming. Nobody. Well, now for me, with O'Connell and his group getting here, Cousins, best season of career. Next year, Cousins, best season of career again. Then he pops the Achilles.
Yeah.
Navigating through all the quarterbacks. Darnold, reclamation project, 10 of 10 work with that until that Lions game. The expectation would be Daniel Jones, big, sturdy, can run, wonderful arm, super smart.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's not maybe this works. No, this will work. The question is to what level. So I think that needs to be included in the equation, don't you?
But that would support then Sam going elsewhere, right?
Yes.
I mean, your trust and your faith and belief in the idea of Daniel Jones.
I mean, these guys know 1,000 times more about it than any of us, man, including me. Mm-hmm. And maybe this, opinion, discernment, take, or whatever is. Some people find it to be, a little heartless, a little too businesslike. Cool. I mean, we don't have to hear the coaches and players say, that's unfortunate, but it's a business. And then we not look at it like, well, that's unfortunate, but it's a business.
Right.
However you do it, whether it's at the combine, whether it's sneaky chats at the Super Bowl, I don't care how it's done. It's always done, and nobody talks about it. It's the oxymoron, the legal tampering. Is you find one team that will trade with you off the franchise tag. You franchise, but you don't do it unless you know.
Have to know.
Yes.
You have to know you've got a trading partner.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And Cleveland is the first team with whom I chat.
Yeah.
Andrew Berry and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah are very close.
Yep.
Barry's his former boss. They are going to be in the market for a quarterback. They may not necessarily want to take one at 2. Mm-hmm. So that's the first call. Then after that, I'm like, Seattle, you guys cool with Geno? So you figure out if you have a dance partner. If you do, you franchise him, you trade him on the tag, you get back players as much as you do picks, and then you move on from there.
If Kwesi can pull that off, that'll be a hell of an impressive achievement, because most people believe the Vikings would have no interest in actually paying Sam Darnold as the average salary of the top 5 quarterbacks of the NFL.
Correct.
So you have to know you've got a trade partner in mind.
I don't think we've ever heard in the annals of the NFL somebody come out and say, well, we were 10 of 10 that maybe when Antoine Winfield sat down with the New York Jets, he was at the facility about to sign a contract. I don't exactly know what turned him at the last second, pen in hand. He's like, I can't do this. I want to go to Minnesota.
Wow. I didn't remember that.
And he came to, so that was a team thinking we have this absolutely buttoned up. And then under the cover of darkness, the greatest corner in the history of Minnesota Vikings football leaves.
Wow, and Anthony Barr did that too.
And so did Kirk.
That's right.
Remember, Kirk was going to be a Jet.
But you never hear in a situation like this, I don't know what happened. We had a deal, and they knew part of the deal was us doing this. I mean, that's Sean Payton like stuff right there. I mean, you're like shaking a hand with somebody, and you got this, you can trust him, and then all of a sudden you plop that $40 million down. He's like, I'm out.
One thing I'm curious about, going back to the kind of the Kwesi vibe, Daniel Jones is not here if Kevin O'Connell does not offer. I could do something with him. Right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so and then now post and without understanding how the conversations went in the contract negotiations, I would have to guess that Kevin O'Connell, as part of this, would even have, let's put arbitrary percentages on it. If it was 60-40, Kwesi gets the final gavel, 60, and then the 40 goes to KO, would that be more 55-45? I feel like Kevin might argue in the idea of favor of ultimately maybe I want more. I want a bigger piece of that proverbial pie when it comes to who's coming in the building.
Yeah.
So whether, now that's Daniel Jones being here, and that would also play into ultimately the long-term conversation around Sam Darnold. And so maybe that would kind of tell the story too, in terms of, because we're putting it on Kwesi, and I agree I'm totally with Charch. This is a massive moment for him to either execute a deal that makes sense and it works out, or the general manager is going to have to wear a significant portion of this if he makes the wrong decision one way or the other. But in the end, I think Kevin O'Connell, I feel like now that he's locked in and whatever that contract is for length of time, I think he probably has a bigger say in this, and that will finish up kind of our overlying opinion once that goes through one way or the other.
Paul, you've brought up Daniel Jones' name for next year more than anybody I know. I think there's not a scenario where both he and Sam Darnold are here next year.
Agreed.
Yep. I think if
and
Darnold,
I don't give Jones 1 in 10 because I have McCarthy.
Right.
Okay. Now I give Jones 1. Well, we'll see.
1 in 10. I would give him 1 in 10 as my backup quarterback.
Yeah, maybe
behind JJ, with all the questions that we don't know about, all the answers we don't know about JJ.
Yeah.
To have a relatively inexpensive backup quarterback who started 50 games
and
blah,
the cap
blah, blah.
goes up each year.
Yeah, 1 in 10 is very, very reasonable for Daniel Jones, and you can tell Daniel Jones, look what we just did with Sam Darnold on 1 in 10, and he's going to turn $10 million this year. Sam might turn that into $50 million, $80 million, who knows, in the offseason. So I think if Daniel Jones, if you did enough to make Daniel Jones love it here, and he'll come back in 1 in 10, I'd much rather have Daniel Jones at 1 in 10 than Sam Darnold at 4 and 35.
Nordo brings up an interesting point that I don't have the answer to when it comes to collaboration between Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Yeah.
Where it's when you are the general manager and you trade a pick that ends up being now Jameson Williams couldn't get out of his own way for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's part of the equation. I mean, wild card, bad kid to a certain extent, intel on why not to take him in the first round had some validity to it. Okay, well now, he's not, you don't, every limb on the route tree is not his friend. But nevertheless, he does well, he does extremely well.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. You passed on that.
Yeah.
But then, your first round pick is on the Eagles practice squad and probably is going to get a ring, but he's still in the league. But I mean, Lewis Cine, I know the injury and everything, but that wasn't great.
And the other part of that trade that really irks me, how little value they got. They had one of the worst draft chart trades ever executed in the NFL when they did the trade down and the value they got back.
And that all, it could have been assistant 1A, assistant 1B, and collaborative assistant 1C, who got the whole thing over the hump. But Kwesi gets bashed because he's the guy entitled.
Yeah, that's
now,
part of his
last
responsibility.
Year, it may have been Brian Flores who convinced players A, B, C, D, E, F, G to come here.
Yeah, Grenard.
Great, cool, right. Well, that's called teamwork, and the team has a point person for stuff like this. It's the general manager. He gets credit. He gets the most credit when the collaborative nature of the teamwork comes to fruition. So it's polarizing with Kevin's new deal, however long it is, however much it is for. There's no way am I going to believe zero part of the conversation was what happens when this pops up? What happens when I want this and others want this?
Yeah.
How do we determine the tiebreaker here? Or like more personnel say, I think Kevin has a lot of personnel say as it is now.
Well, we don't.
So I don't really know, but it's a good point.
We don't know, and broadly speaking, I think most fans would be shocked to learn how little input the coaches have.
Some,
yeah, but it's not nearly as much as people think. Your scouts have been grinding on these players for a year.
Right.
Free agents that were coming in, the rookie class, right?
But what if your
been
scouts are
grinding? Well, then you draft badly. And let's hope that is not the problem that we've got here.
Right.
But we need to draft better, and everybody's got some accountability for that. And Kwesi's is going to be the polarizing figure. When you take that GM job, at the end of the day, that responsibility is yours. You're going to get the praise. You're going to get the blame if it doesn't go well. Yeah. But there are a lot of people that feed into that. Grigson, Runnins. There are a lot of people that feed into that system. But when you want to take the salary of a GM and you want to get that responsibility, you want to have the veto right on all of these things, that comes with it.
That's Paul Charchi, and I'm Paul Allen. You're listening to the Friday Football Feast, and we have some money to give away right now. Here they are.
Yeah, the fan wants to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. So go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword bank. You might put $1,000 in the bank. You might win $1,000 if you use the keyword bank at KFAN.com.
Longtime National Football League referee and official, Bernie Kukar. He's NFL Immortality. He'll be in studio with us about 25 minutes from now with officiating, and specifically officiating Chiefs games, kind of being an A topic up to Super Bowl 59. Bernie, longtime friend of yours truly, but somebody a lot of people have known around the National Football League for multiple decades. He's one of the most well-respected officials in the history of the game. Did it for 22 years as an official, and he was the referee for 2 Super Bowls. So it's really cool to have him in studio about 30 minutes from now talking about the current state of officiating. That'll be about 11:03. But first, I'd like to flip some of the Super Bowl script and just see what you guys think. In other words, like I said earlier, where the reliability of things on which you count, whether it's a daily fantasy thing, it's a betting thing, it's a rooting thing, from all angles. This is reliable. We know this is something on which we can count. And then it just completely falls apart, like heads are scratched because the scenario A or B just couldn't go bad. And it did because like Andy Reid is super smart. Or, what if it's, this is crazy. Like think of yourself saying this. Wow. Late third quarter and Saquon is averaging 2.9 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Late third quarter, 2.9 a carry?
Yeah.
Holy cow, stuff like that. These teams are so good, it can be a tricky talker in that there's so many high-enders, which the question is, which ones do we believe will not shine? And determining who's going to win and why, at least from my standpoint, that always has been a major part of it. It's like everybody in the world looks at this as a win, but I'm going to go ahead and try to find the reliable and find unreliability in it. And it doesn't mean they're going to come to fruition, and I'm not saying any of these are going to happen, but let's start here. To wit, over the entire game, I mean, this is low-hanging fruit here, but I just can't see any way Saquon Barkley gets stuffed or short gains it run after run after run. I expect a massive game from Saquon Barkley.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't even on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so explain. Because clearly that would flip.
That'd be a huge flip.
Well, and that's what we're talking about here, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a contrarian Super Bowl take, Saquon Barkley will not have a massive game. I'm not suggesting he's going to have a 30-yard game, but I'd bet the under. So here's how you can frame up.
So you would under
dud.
on his total yardage in the game, whatever it is.
I would, especially total yardage.
Got it.
Because he doesn't catch.
Right.
He averages barely a catch per game.
Okay.
And he can catch. And you get the ball to him in space, and he's totally lethal. But for whatever reason,
talking runs.
they don't do it. All right,
it's like envision hand Saquon. Oh, wow, look at Chanel. Hand Saquon. Oh, he only got 2. Hand off Saquon. Oh, wow, Karlaftis with the tackle. Like, play after play after play after play.
Remember the Terrell Davis Super Bowl? Super Bowl 32. Think about how far back we're going now.
Yeah.
This is the mid-90s, right?
Yeah,
Something
might
that?
be after the
Late
98
90s?
season.
99.
Okay.
Yeah, Bernie Kukar was the referee for that Super Bowl. The one between the Falcons and the Broncos.
I think you're right.
No, it is accurate.
Since then, you know how many 100-yard rushers there's been in the Super Bowl?
Oh, wow.
Since Terrell Davis did it
I'm liking
in
this
Super
right
Bowl
here.
32.
Yeah.
All the way back to whatever that is.
It's
the
none.
98, 99. 1.
Wow.
1. That's it. The Super Bowl defenses are good. And for whatever, every game's different. We've had one 100-yard rusher since then. Okay. Now,
so what's his over-under rushing yardage or total yardage?
I think it's 113.
For rushing?
I think.
Wow. I saw a 109 and a half on FanDuel.
Okay, so
let me
you
hit
go
you
under on those.
Let me hit you with the KC run defense stats. They're good. They're not great, but they're really good. Yards allowed, they were 8th. Yards per carry allowed, 7th. Yards after contact, 3rd. Missed tackles, 3rd best. No back this year topped 88 yards against Kansas City. And this is a good run defense. So there's a real scenario here.
James Cook was getting what he wanted when he wanted in the AFC title game.
I know. And they foolishly.
Yeah, I mean, and in the division, okay, so J.K. Dobbins, Alexander Madison, and Javonte Green, Carter, whatever his name is, they couldn't bust loose against him?
No.
Okay. Well,
but even we're going back all year.
Yeah.
No 100-yard rusher allowed all season for the Chiefs. It's a pretty good stat at that point. So,
but I'm looking at the level of competition.
Well, okay,
and this is a different creature.
Chiefs have played 19 games, right? There are some good running backs blended into the 19 games, for sure. It's a good, not dominating run defense. So that's your angle for where
I got you.
Saquon has a down game, doesn't catch a lot, doesn't necessarily run for the big. And I saw the stat go by my Twitter feed. I thought that was really interesting, but I didn't jot it down.
Yeah.
He's gotten a huge chunk of his massive yards, his 2,000 yards, against teams in the bottom, defenses in the bottom third of the league when he at run defense. When he plays the top third of the league run defenses, it's very pedestrian numbers. I don't have all the stats.
Yeah,
we'll see.
When's the last time a 2,000-yard rusher was in the Super Bowl?
Wow.
Which was Terrell Davis in 1998 when he went for a $157 and went for touchdown.
And to land the plane on your angle, I mean, I would, I sounded like I was joking, but I'm not. I mean, I would look at the games against Amir Abdullah and Alexander Madison, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, whatever they were trolling out for Denver last year. You got to look at the whole thing and be like,
White though.
What do the run first teams with high end backs, like how do they do? So like James Cook. I mean, Buffalo has as much run first as most teams in the NFL because of the quarterback and the running back. And that seemed to work pretty well, but I understand what you're saying. Let me close the segment with this one. Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
It's his 5th Super Bowl. Now he scored a couple of touchdowns in his first 4. It's the Super Bowl and he's Travis Kelce. It's tailor-made to be big for Travis Kelce. Now, I didn't even try that. Hey, it's absolutely right in front of him to be a big performance for Travis Kelce. Averages about 8 catches, I think, and 80 yards each Super Bowl, which is quality stock. It's either 6 or 8 and 80-ish Yeah, it's 8 in the 4 Super Bowls. So can the Eagles keep him out of the end zone and put him on like a small one? It's not a big one. It's a small one. Like AFC, well, in the AFC title game against Buffalo, 2 catches, 19 yards, 0 touchdowns. Yeah. So that, but this is the Super Bowl. He's Travis Kelce. So like that would be flipping a script. Kelce not performing well to very well with the lights being the brightest.
Let me just ask you 3 this about Travis Kelce. Just watching him in these playoff games. Is it just me? Or does he just look noticeably slower?
Yeah, like he lost a step.
He has. He's lost a step, I think. I don't have stats. I don't have his chip speed and stuff like that. But to me, Kelce doesn't look like the same guy. Now,
right.
Against Houston, the coverage was absurd. They had nobody on him. He was he had all this space. It didn't matter that he wasn't fast. He was able to crush them. But then the Bills come along, and he got absolutely silenced in that game. Now, there's 2 big converging trends for the Eagles in this game against Kelce. All regular season, the Eagles are about as good as any team against tight ends. They ranked number 3 in tight end receptions allowed, number 1 in tight end yards allowed. The Eagles did. But then the postseason comes. The Eagles play Zach Ertz, puts up 104 yards on 11 catches, and then Tyler Higbee, 9 catches, 54 yards. That's 20 catches in the last 2 games that the Eagles gave up to tight ends.
Yes.
Can you eliminate the Ertz game because of the 7 rushing touchdowns and the absolute obliteration?
Yeah, maybe to some degree they went prevent mode.
I guess
early
because if we're just looking at it from a fantasy perspective, that would tell the story and lean towards Kelce having a good game. If this is close, if it is a meat grinder, does that happen?
Yeah.
See, I think the Kelce part comes down to something I'll present next involving those talented Georgia kids in the interior of the Eagles' defensive line. We'll be right back.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked number 1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and number 2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve. It's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Alrighty, so here's what I was getting at. The Georgia kids. Now like flipping the Super Bowl script. Reliability becoming unreliable. The Georgia kids, an emphasis kids here because they're young in the league. Eagles defensive lineman Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. The beefy Davis in his 3rd year. The super strong and fast Jalen Carter in his 2nd season. And Chiefs head coach Andy Reid in his 26th year coaching.
I always love that one.
And his offensive line coach, Andy Heck, in his 13th year coaching O-line for the Chiefs.
I always love that one.
And has won 3 Super Bowls and was the national champion with Notre Dame in like 1988.
Andy Reid's the winningest coach for both organizations.
Yeah. So you have, it's again, I'm trying to just the preponderance of the reliable becoming unreliable. The Georgia kids can't lose with them, right? I mean, just absolutely. Everybody in the world would take Davis and Carter. Absolutely. But what about for this individual game against an O-line coach with 3 rings and 13 years of equity for this guy with this team, and the guy being in his 26th year, Andy Reid. So here's what I'm getting at, brains over brawn. The champion coaches utterly handle the interior of the Eagles' defense, forcing them to blitz to get a pass rush. And if that happens, well, guess who takes off? Travis Kelce. He'll eat you alive if you have to blitz. He'll have at least 80 yards in this game. That now that was a lot, laying it out like that. And it is improbable that a team is able to slow both of those guys at the biggest spots for the full game. But if Reed and Heck and Andy played, he knows his way around offensive line. If that happens long enough, then I think Kelce gets put on a big game because he'll be in single coverage the entire game. And good morning.
I think the Eagles are going to win the battle at the line of scrimmage pretty handily. Not only is there Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, but don't forget Nolan Smith as well. They are going up against
and Brandon Graham. I think he's going to play.
I think he will.
I think he's going to play third down. He'll be third down trick
pass
guy.
rushing specialist,
and it's going to work.
Yep, it might. The Chiefs' offensive line, the center is awesome. Creed Humphrey. Both tackles are pretty big liabilities right now. Joe Thuney's great as a guard. They're playing him at left tackle. And he's had to fill in at left tackle for the last, 4 or 5 games, and he's been pretty good. But it's all different when you have to go against the guys like Jalen Carter. That is a whole different level entirely. So the whole key supposition here that the Eagles are going to struggle to get a pass rush, to me, probably not going to happen, at least not in my mind.
Yeah,
anyway.
What you saw from Mahomes in the AFC title game, though, you think about him getting loose on the ground. That when we were talking about it yesterday or the day before, maybe, kind of the idea of how you view a Trey Smith who will be entering free agency potentially at guard and how much money he's going to command and the Chiefs' ability. Creed Humphrey, one of the best centers in the NFL, he's going to get paid. But in the last several years, they have shed offensive line talent and have found their way forward. Moving a Joe Thuney, for instance, from inside a guard outside to tackle to make it work because of who they're protecting, right? And what he does from a mobility standpoint. You think about that versus the Jalen Carters and the Jordan Davises?
Yeah, you do. And that's, that is a factor for sure. But I still feel like there's this team's beatable on the edges. And if you can beat the Chiefs on the edges, you're pinching in on Patrick Mahomes from both sides, and now he doesn't have the escapability might not be there. So I do think I am listening a little bit on where you're going with Patrick Mahomes scrambling in this game. There's a scenario that's not that far-fetched that the leading runner for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl is Patrick Mahomes by rushing yards.
And that's where I was going with that, because I think the amount of pressure that he's going to see and Pacheco, when we were, and I don't know if we'll even have time in the show to kind of dig into potential prop bets and various things.
Yeah.
But the rushing yards for Patrick Mahomes, I've been looking at that and somewhat salivating to try and find the right number that I could potentially feast on, because I believe that does become a factor.
Yeah.
And that, in bringing that back to Kelsey, well, if he's running, maybe you don't see that production from Kelsey, so that's part of the conversation. But in the end, now bringing it to Mahomes in particular, if Kelsey is starving because of that, potentially Patrick Mahomes is feasting.
And if you happen to like Saquon Barkley to be on like a big game, or Kelsey on a big game, or whomever a big game,
I love Saquon in this game.
It's all fun and games until Saquon gets over that number, and you hear holding. Number 74 offense, replay second down. The as we said earlier, the officiating of Super Bowl 59, and specifically Kansas City Chiefs games nationally, not here 9 to noon. We focus on different things, but nationally, it has been an A topic up to this game.
Yep.
So given that's the case, and we got lucky that he's in town coming up next, one of the most well-respected officials in the history of the National Football League, and a Minnesotan, Bernie Kukar. He's been on the radio show before, and he's going to join us in studio now.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.